I want to end government shutdowns. As a fiscal hawk, for me personally, government shutdowns, I have so many people that think it's, this great valiant effort every time. It ends up being the charge of the light brigade every time because it cracks, it breaks every single time on it. It also spends more money every time. We literally lose money, taxpayer dollars, just poured down the drain. We're paying federal workers to be at home, not working. We have the cost of all the shutdown. We have the cost of all the restart on it. There's a loss of productivity across our economy that we can literally track a loss in GDP every time it happens. And plus, we look dumb on the world stage. We're the United States of America. The whole world looks at us and goes, they can't even run a budget. So it doesn't help us on that long term. So what I've done is I've created a bill that says if we get to the end of the fiscal year, September the 30th right now, if we get to the end of the fiscal year and we haven't got the 12 appropriation bills down, automatically a continuing resolution would kick in.
Americans are capable of achieving extraordinary things when they have the freedom and opportunity to do so. This is American Potential.
Hey everyone, welcome to the American Potential Podcast. I'm your host, David Fromm. The news cycle is heating up with talk of a possible government shutdown. When that happens, you'll hear about government workers and contractors not getting paid. But the effect of a shutdown trickles down to everyone. For example, a shutdown affects energy permitting, slows down passport and visa services, and delays student loan processing. It also slows down small business loans, which many entrepreneurs really rely on to get started. So one senator is pushing a bill to stop these shutdowns from happening. So why are we facing a government shutdown? At the end of every fiscal year, Congress is supposed to pass 12 appropriation bills. That sounds like a lot of jargon, but really, it's just the federal budget broken down into 12 areas. For example, some of the bills deal with defense or agriculture or national security or veterans affairs or energy and a lot of more areas. Right now, all 12 bills are out of committee and waiting for votes in the House and the Senate, but lawmakers only have until the end of the month to get it done. This senator's bill would put pressure back on Congress to do its job, rather than forcing taxpayers and federal workers to pay the price for Washington gridlock. I want to welcome back to the podcast Oklahoma Senator James Lankford, who we had on last year to talk about the Preventing Government Shutdown Act that he's introduced. Welcome back to the podcast, Senator. Thanks so much for joining us.
Glad to be able to be back again.
Excellent. Well, hey, so government shutdowns, I know that it's top of mind for a lot of people. There's just a basic question. Why is it so hard for Congress to get these 12 appropriations bills passed?
Yeah, it has been for decades now, and it's getting harder and harder and harder. And if I want to tell you the core of the issue, it's because we have a rising debt and deficit. This is not difficult to be able to do when you're balancing the budget, but when you're this far out of balance, there's a fight every single year about how to be able to deal with this. So first things first, we got to get back to balancing the budget again. And then that simplifies everything as far as what's happening in inflation, what's happening, everything else. Second part of this is, if I can just sound partisan for a second, my Democrat colleagues have filibustered every single nominee from President Trump. That consumes the schedule for the Senate. And so we don't have time to get on legislation. So part of our challenge has been we've been moving 150 nominees. Every single one of those takes 3 hours apiece or more on the floor to be able to move when they filibuster them.
Wow.
We still have about 150 to go to be able to work our way through. So we're literally just changed the rules in the Senate just last week, so we can actually move faster on that and we can get to legislation. We do personnel and policy both in the Senate, but the personnel part of it can't consume so much time we can't even get to legislation.
Yeah, that's a great insight for our folks to really understand. Because I think a lot of times people don't really understand what's going on in our legislative bodies. Yeah. I want to go back to something you said, because I do want to talk about the Preventing Government Shutdown Act. But I think what I heard you say is that it's kind of a symptom of our rising debt and overspending.
It is.
With the Trump administration coming in, the Republican majorities, how do you feel about our trajectory or what's coming in the near future with regard to spending?
So spending has been something we've taken on a little bit. We've done obviously tax policy. If you're going to balance budget, you got to be able to have a growing economy and you got to limit your spending. You got to have both. You're not going to have one without the other on it. So we've done a lot of work on the tax policy piece. We've done some on reducing spending. For instance, we did what was called a rescission package, a $9 billion during the year rescission that happened. That's the first time in about 3 decades that that's actually occurred. So it's pretty rare to be able to have mid-year a reduction of spending. We did that this year. So there are some things we're actively doing to try to bring down spending. The big issues dealing with the entitlements and everything, we touched a little bit on the Medicaid side during the one big beautiful bill. That was adding work requirements and finding ways to be able to say, hey, we want Medicaid to get to people that need Medicaid, but it shouldn't go to people that are not qualified, and it shouldn't go to people that are literally just sitting at home and they could be working and getting employer provided health care rather than their neighbor providing their health care. So that's going to help long term. It's going to take some time to be able to make that shift, but there are some process things that are already in motion on that. But we are $2 trillion in overspending in a single year, $2 trillion. So that's not something we're going to fix in 1 year. We've got to be able to chip away on this over the next several years to be able to get us back to balance and then start paying down debt. But first things first, you got to start reducing your spending to do that. And that's part of the task that we're taking on right now.
Yeah, amen. We've done a few episodes very recently on the things related to Medicaid and the rescission packages. We're really excited about the steps in the right direction on reducing spending. It's kind of like, someone's got a drinking problem. First steps to admit it, and then taking steps to not drink a little bit. So
yeah, the first step's stop buying more. That would be a good first step for us to stop having it, buying it, putting it in your cart in the grocery store and bringing it home. So we have that challenge. The SNAP is another area on it where we change the structure on how the supplemental nutrition is done. That's going to do nothing but help us long term. Debt and deficit, just going to take some time to do it, but we're getting started.
That's right. So the appropriation bills are out of the committee, but why does it take so long for the House and Senate to vote on them?
Yeah. So if I go back to the Chuck Schumer time period, again, it sounds like I'm just being a gross partisan on this. Chuck Schumer never brought a single appropriation bill to the floor, not even for a vote. It would come to committee, and then he would basically put it in his office and say, at the end of the year, it'll all be negotiated out of my office. That's an absolutely terrible way to be able to do that. You'll hear people in the Senate talk about an open process. That's actually getting an appropriation bill on the floor, actually doing amendments, crazy as that sounds, having open debate on that, having a vote on it and passing it and being able to move from there. That can be done, should be done, but it's rarely done at this point. And there's a couple of reasons. One appropriation bill can take up to 2 weeks to do. If you've got 12 appropriation bills, that would be 24 weeks that it takes to actually move it across the floor. The bills don't even come out of committee until usually June. Well, then you got to have them all done by the end of September. There's literally not 24 weeks left to be able to get it done. So there's a couple of things that are here. Typically, they're combined. You'll put 2 or 3 together and try to move them together, which we did. We had 3 bills that we moved together. Once they came out of committee, amended it, had an open process, got those 3 done. But there's 9 still that haven't been brought to the floor at all yet. So the first things we really need to do is change the process of how we do this. We should have fewer bills come to the floor. We're not going to get 12 bills moving to the floor anymore. That's just not going to happen just time-wise on it. We should do 4 to 6 that come across the floor. They get amended, they get the process, but we know the structure of how they're going to come together. That's going to change in budget law for us to do that. But hello, we created the last process in 1974. We can recreate this one, and to say that might have worked in 1974, it hasn't worked in decades. So we need to be able to fix it in a way that structurally is going to work. There's several ideas about how to do that, how to change the budget process. The other one is obvious. If it seems like every year we do the budget, we have government shutdown fights at the end of September, and then we finally get it done in December. I look at this and say, why are we fighting gravity every single year? Let's actually do a calendar year rather than a fiscal year. When a new president comes in, their budget is due like the first week of March. Well, they barely got their staff on board. They came on the 20th of January. They're trying to get all their staff on board, trying to do every single agency's budget in that time period. We're always going to be behind on it. So do it in a calendar year. Then we can actually give time for the president to be able to make the proposal, what they want to do, give the House and the Senate time to fight it out, get it done when it's actually done on time every single year. But again, it's a structural change to be able to do that.
I want to go to something you mentioned. You talked about how this, you don't want to sound partisan. Like you're a fiscal hawk. You're conservative.
I'm unashamedly conservative.
Yeah. But I also know like you're one of the most you're one of the leaders in the Senate, from my observation, of saying like, hey, we have to be able to communicate. We can't be hyper partisan. We need to communicate for the good of the American people. And I think you've been a real leader in the Senate on that. So I've appreciated that. I know that the tone that you try to strike as a senator is something, even just at Americans for Prosperity, that our team really appreciates, because I think it's getting us back to a productive relationship, hopefully.
Yeah, I hope it does, David. Thanks. I appreciate that. I've never been convinced by somebody by them yelling and cussing me out. And on social media, you get more likes by being more sarcastic and angry, but don't get more actual friends that way. And right now, I don't want to just talk to just my fellow conservatives that believe like I do. I've got to convince some people that disagree with me, and I'm not going to convince people that disagree with me by belittling them. So for me, we have differences of opinion. I've got relationships on the left. They vote wrong all the time, but I still have open relationships and open dialogue with them on hard issues, and say, it doesn't help me to be just partisan and caustic in this, but I do want to be able to talk to you about something that I think is wrong. And sometimes you can actually move somebody to say, yeah, okay, we need to fix that. But we got a million issues: budgeting, permitting, all kinds of issues that we've got on energy policy. They're going to all require bipartisan votes. I can either make fun of the other side, or I can sit down with them and help convince them that they're wrong on that, and to say, how can we actually move on it? But I'm not going to move them if I'm just making fun of them.
Yeah, I wish for more people on of your colleagues on both sides would also take some of that advice. So turning to the Preventing Government Shutdown Act, what does it actually do?
Yeah, I want to end government shutdowns. As a fiscal hawk, for me personally, government shutdowns, I have so many people that think it's this great valiant effort every time. It ends up being the charge of the light brigade every time, because it cracks, it breaks every single time on it. It also spends more money every time. We literally lose money, taxpayer dollars just poured down the drain. We're paying federal workers to be at home, not working. We have the cost of all the shutdown. We have the cost of all the restart on it. There's a loss of productivity across our economy that we can literally track a loss in GDP every time it happens. And plus, we look dumb on the world stage. We're the United States of America. The whole world looks at us and goes, they can't even run a budget. So it doesn't help us on that long term. So what I've done is I've created a bill that says if we get to the end of the fiscal year, September the 30th right now, if we get to the end of the fiscal year, and we haven't got the 12 appropriation bills down, automatically a continuing resolution would kick in at the same year's budget. So there's no change in spending. It stays exactly the same. But we also have to be in session 7 days a week. Members of the House and the Senate can't travel. We have a vote every single day, and you can't do bills other than appropriations. So if I can say it as simple as this, when my older brother and I would get into a fight growing up and we'd be yelling at each other in the living room, my mom would look at us and go, you guys go to your room, you fight it out in there, and when you're done, come out, because you're disturbing the whole family. Go argue in the other room, not in here. Literally, the government shutdown bill, that's all it does. It says, leave the rest of the family alone. Stop messing with the whole country. Congress, House, Senate, Republicans, Democrats, go to your spot. Keep arguing about this until it's resolved, but hold the rest of the country harmless while you're fighting it out. We should have big arguments about spending. We need those arguments. Let's have them, but let's not damage the rest of the country while we're doing it. And for Pete's sake, let's not throw money down the drain with just wasteful inefficiencies while we're trying to be able to actually save dollars. So this just says we keep going in Congress every single day, 7 days a week. We're locked into doing only appropriation bills until we solve the problem, but the American people are held harmless.
So you're saying that the subtitle of the bill could be the Mama Lankford Solutions Bill?
Come on, that'd be a good way to do it. James's mom's bill would be a great way to be able to title this. Quite frankly, I've found out over the years that my mom was not the only one who did that. So just mom's bill would probably work.
There you go. All right. Yeah, more wide-reaching. So what's the resistance to the bill?
Change the status quo. The only thing harder here than the reality is changing the status quo. Everybody looks at it and says, what about the unintended consequences? What if there was a war that broke out and we had to be able to vote on things other than that bill? It's like, you know what? We have an emergency measure built into it. If we have a supermajority say there's a war, come out of it. There's also the leadership on both sides at times. The leadership will say, well, when we get to a shutdown, that empowers actually the leader's office, and they make the final negotiations on it. You're talking about trying to empower the entire body. That's different. And I look at it and go, yeah, that seems like what a republic should do, is that the entire House and the Senate, they've got to be able to work this out. They've got to be able to stay engaged and actually pass bills. That should be standard for us. And so for me, it's just take this off the table. By the way, the entire Republican conference for the Senate, every single member has signed on to solving ending government shutdowns, all of them. This particular bill was actually in our conference rules last year for our conference rules that we passed to say, if we're going to get a bill to be able to solve it, this would be the bill to solve it. So the issue has not been on the Republican side. The issue has been moving my Democrat colleagues on this. I have a significant number of Democrat colleagues that are now nodding their head and going, yep, I'll get on board with this. We've got to be able to solve it. We never tried to do this as a partisan solution from the beginning. Doesn't matter if you're Republican or Democrat. Both sides have done government shutdowns. Both sides have been recipients of the fight. Let's just try to be able to take that off the table and say, have the fight, but don't have the shutdown. So we're hoping to still be able to get it done, and we're just going to keep working until we solve it.
Yeah, I mean, if you have to look at your crystal ball, what do you think the likelihood of passing this is?
In the next 3 weeks, 0. But in the next year and a half, maybe. Yeah, because it really is building momentum. I've got Democrat sponsors in the House of Representatives as well as a Republican sponsor. Jody Arrington, who's the chairman of the Budget Committee in the House, is also on board with this bill. So it's not just a Senate bill. We've worked for years. We've taken it to the Trump administration to get their what's called technical assistance on the bill to make sure this works fine for them. Interestingly enough, we took it to the Biden administration before. Their Office of Management and Budget also signed off onto it and said, yeah, this works. And so when I come back to my Democrat colleagues, I can say, Biden White House signed off on this. Trump White House has signed off on this. Can't be more bipartisan than that. Let's just solve the problem on it. Now, it doesn't solve all of our budget issues. It just solves the one issue. We can't have government shutdowns anymore because they do waste money and time and effort.
Yeah, I mean, you've really talked about how this would make government work better or work less poorly, I guess. Maybe, as we come to the close eventually here, how would this bill affect Oklahomans or everyday Americans? What kind of difference would this maybe make in their lives?
One of the things that I run into at home a lot is just folks that say, how come you guys can't do your job? Seriously, I'd get fired day to day if I work like you work. And I laugh and I say, we're a noisy country. We have 340 million people that all have different ideas, and it all gets expressed in Congress. But the budget work especially makes people mad. So what I think the first thing would be is people would no longer have to look at that countdown clock on their cable news channel of how many hours until a government shutdown, and the frustration people would have of saying, please, come on, you guys just do your job. I don't know what the fight is this year, but solve it. Figure this out, okay? That's why you guys are there. So I think the frustration, that would help everybody. The second thing is when you don't get the budget done on time, it really does affect the operations. Let me give you an example. If the budget's not done on time, and let's just pick national defense on it. If it were on a continuing resolution, the government may still be open, but you can't change anything from last year. So if last year we were supposed to buy, 12 helicopters of a certain type, and then next year we're going to buy 12 more of a different type on it, you can't do that. You're stuck. And so everybody that's in manufacturing, everybody that's in purchasing, and again, it's a waste of dollars on it to go, we're now having to wait on the process, and it makes every single piece of equipment more expensive because all the time gets done. There may also be a program that was started in the Department of Education in last year's budget. We're going to end it in this year's budget. You can't end it until you pass the new budget. We are currently, 9 months into the Trump presidency. We're still operating under the Biden budget. Still. And when we have continuing resolution, we'll still be under the Biden budget. We can't stop programs until we pass new laws. So all these crazy programs out there that drive everybody crazy, the way to solve it, pass appropriation bills. That's how you actually shut it down. So ending government shutdowns means actually greater efficiency in government, less frustration across the country.
Yeah, well, I hope that we can see that. This is just so commonsensical. And I think that's one of the things that the American people get frustrated by is when they see something commonsensical that doesn't progress, or they see something that just doesn't make sense to them. They kind of go, well, I couldn't do that in my own life. So I think that this kind of restores some common sense to our whole system. So I wish you the best in fighting this good fight. And I didn't realize that there was such widespread support in the Republican conference for this. So I think it's that's really encouraging.
Yep, I'm very encouraged by it. We're going to just be able to keep moving until we actually get it done. We got lots of other problems to solve, but our process issues shouldn't stand in the way of actually solving the problem.
Agreed. Well, Senator, thank you so much for joining us. We really appreciate you coming back on. We hope to have you on again.
Yeah, I look forward to it. Keep praying for the nation. Don't lose hope. We're the greatest country in the world still. As frustrated as we are, we're the greatest country in the world. We just got more work to do to be able to make it clear.
Amen. Well, folks, if you like this episode and would like to stay connected with the podcast, please be sure to like and subscribe to our channel, as well as following us on Facebook, Instagram, and YouTube. Always remember, liberty and freedom are easily taken for granted. Don't take it for granted. Go out there and defend freedom and liberty. Thanks for joining us, and we'll see you on the next episode.
Thank you for listening to American Potential. You may listen to more stories from Americans working every day to expand freedom and opportunity in their communities by visiting AmericanPotential.com.